In a previous video, I discussed a Mets-Marlins game from 2013, which I described as the most frustrating loss in MLB history. In short, I called that game the most frustrating loss ever due to the ample opportunities the Mets had to drive in the winning run and failing to do so. For a game that lasted 20 innings, the Mets had a runner reach scoring position 8 times in the 8th inning or later and failed to score each time. You have to be trying to lose if you rattle off that many opportunities and can't drive in a single run. What you may not know is, 3 years earlier, the Mets were involved in a similar game where a team had ample opportunity to win, but didn't. It's a game I call the sloppiest loss or sloppiest win in MLB history. April 17th, 2010. The visiting New York Mets are in St. Louis to face the Cardinals. The Mets had their ace Johan Santana on the mound, while St. Louis sent out Jaime Garcia, one of the top pitchers on the team that season. New York was one of the worst hitting teams in 2010, placing 24th in runs scored per game. The Cardinals, on the other hand, were slightly above average. Given the poor hitting from the Mets, as well as 2 terrific starters on the mound, we were in for a brutal pitcher's duel. How brutal? Well, at this point in the video, I would like to skip all the way to the 7th inning already because almost nothing happened so far. Jaime Garcia held the Mets hitless for the first 5 innings and kept them scoreless through 7 strong innings. Johan Santana was just as good, limiting the Cardinals to 4 hits and also 0 runs allowed. After a scoreless top of the 8th, Mets reliever Ryota Igarashi came in to replace Santana and he walked 2 batters to set up first and second with 2 outs. However, Matt Holliday would strike out to end the inning without a run scoring, 0-0 entering the 9th. After another scoreless top half of the inning, the Cardinals once again had a runner reach base. With the winning run on first in the bottom of the 9th, Mets lefty Pedro Feliciano got infielder Felipe Lopez to ground into an inning-ending double play. We head to extras with no score. The top of the 10th saw deja vu as for the 4th straight inning, the Mets went down 1-2-3. In the bottom half, the Cardinals rallied with 2 outs. A walk to Skip Schumacher, a single by Ryan Ludwick, and a walk to Albert Pujols loaded the bases for Matt Holliday. A golden chance to redeem himself for stranding the winning run 2 innings prior, however, Holliday would pop out to end the threat. At this point, you might be seeing what's going on. The Cardinals had multiple opportunities to drive in the winning run, but continuously failed to do so. They stranded runners on base in the last 4 innings, twice in which they had a runner in scoring position. Alas, New York was able to escape each inning unharmed. Both bullpens held each other in check and the game remained scoreless entering the bottom of the 12th. Quick side note, in the top of the 12th inning, Mets second baseman Luis Castillo singled. Why is that relevant? It was just the second hit of the game for the Mets. As evidenced by this game and the game in my other video, New York had atrocious hitting in the early 2010s. Moving on, in the bottom of the 12th, once again with 2 outs, the Cardinals rallied. A single by Schumacher, catcher's interference by Ryan Ludwick, and a second walk to Albert Pujols load the bases once again. You might be thinking, hey, that was the exact same trio that was on base when Matt Holliday popped out 2 innings earlier. He has a 3rd chance to drive in the winning run. Well, no, for the man at the plate was relief pitcher Jason Mott. Yes, a relief pitcher was at bat. You see, there were a lot of substitutions. After Jaime Garcia pitched 7 scoreless innings, Cardinals manager Tony La Russa went to the bullpen. In the 8th inning, he made a double switch, subbing out third baseman David Freese for Brendan Ryan and brought in Kyle McClellan to pitch. After 2 scoreless innings by McClellan, Nick Stavinoha pinch hit for the pitcher and was replaced by Mitchell Boggs in the 10th inning. In the bottom half, La Russa opted to have Joe Mather pinch hit for outfielder Colby Rasmus to lead off the inning. The Mets pitcher was a lefty, as was Rasmus, so La Russa was naturally playing the righty and lefty advantage. That plan didn't work out, however, as Mather would ground out to third in this at-bat and later take over in center field for Rasmus in the 11th inning. La Russa was not done with the substitutions there. Still in the top of the 11th, after a 1-out walk to Angel Pagan, La Russa made yet another double switch. The pitcher spot was due up to bat in the bottom of the 11th, so he swapped out that spot with outfielder Alan Craig, who took over left field. Matt Holliday was taken out for a new pitcher, Trevor Miller. Due to the double switch, Craig was now batting 6th in the lineup and Miller was batting 4th. That's why the pitcher was due up to bat in Holliday's original lineup spot. Jason Mott would later replace Trevor Miller in the 12th inning, which is why he came to bat with the bases loaded and 2 outs in a scoreless game. La Russa had used so many position players, he had to have his relief pitcher bat with the game on the line. What a thrill it must have been for Mott though. It was just the second at-bat of his career, and he had a chance to do something extremely rare, a pitcher walking off a game. How rare is it? In the designated hitter era, which is 1973 to present day, it's been done 14 times. You might be familiar with the most recent occurrence.
The throw, and they got him! No! He called him safe!
Could Jason Mott make history here? No. He would strike out, and we head to the 13th inning. That's 2 bases loaded at-bats and extra innings wasted. After a scoreless 13th inning, the Mets themselves got 2 runners on base in the 14th, but Jason Bay grounded out to end the threat. The game was deadlocked at 0-0 heading into the bottom of the 14th. This is where the Cardinals finally got something going again. With Hisanori Takahashi on the mound for New York, Joe Mather led off the inning with a double. The next batter, Brendan Ryan, sacrifice bunted Mather over the third, but an error committed by Takahashi allowed Ryan to reach first. This game is now on red alert. The Cardinals have runners on the corners with no outs with the heart of the lineup due to bat. At bat was Skip Schumacher, and all he had to do was put the ball in play to end this game. Brendan Ryan would steal second base on defensive indifference, putting runners on second and third with no outs. Even with first base open, the Mets opted not to walk Schumacher. What did he do in this at-bat? He struck out. Still runners on second and third and 1 out, the next batter, Ryan Ludwick, also struck out. 2 clutch strikeouts by Takahashi, and the Mets were 1 out away from escaping a monster-sized jam. The next batter, Albert Pujols, was intentionally walked to load the bases again, which then brought up to the plate Blake Hawksworth, another relief pitcher. Once again, due to La Russa's wild usage of position players earlier in the game, he had no choice but to use a reliever to come to the plate with the bases loaded for the second time this game. This was the first at-bat in the career of Hawksworth, and what a moment it would be to walk off the game in your first career at-bat. Could Hawksworth do it? On a 2-2 count, he struck out. The Cardinals had runners on second and third and no outs, and 3 strikeouts would strand the bases loaded. Takahashi with the escape artist act to send this long game into the 15th inning. At this point, the Cardinals had at least 1 runner reach base in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 12th, 13th, and 14th inning and could not score a run. This includes a runner in scoring position in 5 of those 7 innings. It's unnerving that St. Louis couldn't score a run. The pitchers the Cardinals were facing also weren't anything special. St. Louis had faced 4 Mets pitchers out of the bullpen through the 14th inning. They ranged from average to downright awful. Despite that, the Mets kept steady, constantly working around base runners, and it would not end anytime soon. In the bottom of the 15th inning, the Cardinals put 2 runners on base with 2 outs, and Brendan Ryan grounded out to second base to end the inning. In the bottom of the 16th inning, the Cardinals once again put 2 runners on base, this time with 1 out. Ryan Ludwick and Albert Pujols had both singled, and with the pitcher spot due up, backup catcher Brian Anderson came to bat to pinch hit for the pitcher. Hey, wait a second. The Cardinals not once, but twice had a relief pitcher bat with the bases loaded, but they still had a batter to use? Why wasn't he used earlier? I get that in both instances there were 2 outs, but there was no guarantee you would have this opportunity again. St. Louis had 2 golden chances to win the game, loading the bases in a tied game in extra innings twice. And instead of sending out a professional hitter, La Russa used a relief pitcher. Again, not once, but twice. That makes no sense to me. You don't know what could happen if the game continues. It could very well have ended with a Mets victory in the 15th inning. La Russa just wasted multiple chances to win the game because he saved a position player to use in a hypothetical situation that may or may not happen. Lucky for him, that hypothetical situation did happen, again, and it only took 2 innings. Now you might be thinking, Anderson was the last position player on the bench, and the only backup catcher to Yadier Molina. Certainly, it makes sense to save him for an emergency, especially to sub out Molina to give him a rest. I understand that logic and normally would agree if not for one thing, which I will explain in a moment. But first, was Brian Anderson able to win the game here?
Bounce to the second baseman, Castillo to Reyes for 1. And now the throw to the plate, and Ludwick is caught in a run down, and it's tagged out.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. When the game entered the top of the 17th inning, Brian Anderson was taken out of the game. He did not even replace Molina. The only backup catcher on the bench was now unable to be subbed in, and Molina was forced to continue catching. If La Russa wasn't going to sub in Anderson for Molina, why not use him earlier? Had Anderson batted with the bases loaded in the 12th or 14th inning, perhaps he could have won the game. I don't know what Tony La Russa was thinking there, and frankly, I would guess he didn't know what he was doing either. The game would not end in the 17th inning, as Ryan Franklin retired the Mets easily, and Raul Valdez retired the Cardinals in order in the bottom half. It was just the second time in the past 11 innings the Cardinals failed to get a base runner. Once the game entered the 18th inning, things got weird for St. Louis. You see, the Cardinals had run out of pitchers. Entering this game, St. Louis carried 12 pitchers and 13 position players on their 25-man roster. The 12 pitchers consisted of 5 starters and 7 relievers. Not only were all 13 position players used, all 7 relievers were used as well. After 7 innings by Jaime Garcia, Kyle McClellan pitched the 8th and 9th innings, Mitchell Boggs threw 1 1/3 innings, Trevor Miller pitched an inning, Jason Mott replaced him and pitched the 12th and 13th, Dennis Reyes threw an inning, followed by Blake Hawksworth getting the bulk of the innings, throwing 2 1/3 frames to wrap up the 16th inning, and lastly, the closer Ryan Franklin threw a scoreless 17th inning. Several of those pitchers had pitched the previous day, and the Cardinals still had a game the following day, so La Russa had to preserve some of his pitchers, which is why most did not pitch more than an inning or so. Given that notion, he still handled the situation poorly. Following the 9th inning, La Russa had to use 6 pitchers for only 8 innings, which is an average of 1 1/3 innings pitched per pitcher. I get that some pitchers couldn't throw more than an inning or so, but La Russa certainly took out multiple relievers when they could have kept going. His bullpen usage is questionable at best, leaving him with no options as the game progressed. So, with no position players or relief pitchers left to use in the game, what did La Russa do? He moved his third baseman Felipe Lopez to the pitcher spot, had his center fielder Joe Mather move from center field to third base, shifted around his outfield, moving Ryan Ludwick from right field to center and Alan Craig from left field to right, and lastly, he brought in starting pitcher Kyle Lohse to play left field. Kyle Lohse, in his 10th season in Major League Baseball, who at 31 years old, presumably had not played a position outside of pitcher since he was in high school, was taking the field for the first and only time in his 16-year career. Forget position players pitching. When there's a pitcher in a position player's role, then you have my attention. With the score still tied at 0, there was a ballgame to be played with or without an actual pitcher on the mound. The Mets failed to score in 17 innings against actual pitchers. Could they score against an infielder? Nope. Felipe Lopez allowed a hit and walk, but finished the inning without allowing a run. Funny enough, the only hit of that inning was by Raul Valdez, the Mets' own relief pitcher. The position players could not manage a hit off an opposing position player, but the relief pitcher could. Ironic. Look, I get it when hitters don't get hits off position players in blowouts. When a catcher or outfielder is on the mound in the 9th inning down 16-1, the opposing hitters probably just want to get this game over with and freely swing at anything to put the ball in play. But when it's tied in extra innings, how on earth does a position player hold other position players scoreless? It might not seem like so, but the Mets are playing to win and need a single run to take the lead, and yet, the players being paid to hit for a living couldn't get a hit off an infielder. Moving on. In the bottom of the 18th, Brendan Ryan singled with 1 out, and the next batter, Skip Schumacher, immediately grounded into an inning-ending double play. That's now 18 base runners the Cardinals have had since the 8th inning. 0 runs in that entire stretch. In the top of the 19th, La Russa made another pitching move. He switched Felipe Lopez with Joe Mather. At long last, after 2 full games worth of scoreless baseball, we finally saw something. A walk, sacrifice, intentional walk, and hit by pitch load the bases for Jeff Francoeur. Oh, by the way, I get Luis Castillo wasn't the greatest hitter in the world, particularly having a dreadful final season in 2010, but man oh man, imagine being a professional hitter and being asked to sacrifice against an outfielder pitching to you. With Francoeur now at bat, he came through, hitting a sacrifice fly to who else but Kyle Lohse out and left, and the Mets scored the first run of the game, taking a 1-0 lead in the 19th inning. After an intentional walk to Henry Blanco, Raul Valdez came to the plate with the bases loaded and grounded out to end the inning. That's 3 at-bats in this game with the bases loaded and a relief pitcher at the plate. I don't know how to check, but I'm guessing that's the record. With a lead heading into the bottom of the 19th inning, the Mets saved their closer Francisco Rodriguez, and he came in to finish the rest of this game, or whatever you would call this debacle. St. Louis had squandered countless opportunities to win all day, constantly getting runners to scoring position, but coming up empty-handed. Questionable substitutions made by manager Tony La Russa are at play here, but nothing is excusable for how lackluster the hitting has been. You're telling me the Cardinals could not get one lousy run despite the enormous amount of chances? What you ought to know right away is that in 2010, Francisco Rodriguez was one of the best closers in the league. He achieved a 2.20 ERA and 179 adjusted ERA across 57 and a third innings pitched that year. There are over 100 relief pitchers to throw at least 50 innings in Major League Baseball in 2010, and K-Rod ranks inside the top 20 in ERA and adjusted ERA. One of the best relief pitchers against a tired, deflated lineup should be an open and shut inning, right? Well, as fate has it, the Cardinals did not go down quietly in the 19th. With 1 out and no one on base, Albert Pujols hit the double, setting up yet another inning where the Cardinals get a runner to scoring position. I've lost track of how many of those happened, but I'll count them at the end of the video. The next batter, starting pitcher, or should I say left fielder Kyle Lohse, grounds out, advancing Pujols to third. The Mets are an out away from winning this long ball game. I love how the pitching coach goes out to talk to Francisco Rodriguez here. I mean, what could you even say at this point? You and the other pitchers got the first 56 outs, just get one more. The last hope for St. Louis was the catcher and notable Mets killer Yadier Molina. I get that every game counts, and wins in April are just as important as games in September, but sometimes you just need to wave the white flag and admit defeat. New York tried to give this game away to the Cardinals, and St. Louis came up empty-handed each and every time. Despite the atrocious amount of opportunities, the Cardinals defied all odds not to score, call it a wash, and go home to rest for tomorrow's game. But you know, baseball is funny like that. It has more bizarreness than any other sport in the world. Why do I say that?
The 1-1 to Molina, and a base hit to right field. Pujols scores. We are tied at 1. Of course we're tied.
They somehow did it. 0 runs combined through the first 18 innings. 2 runs scored in the 19th. Yadier Molina, who had a career OPS under 700 and adjusted OPS of 82 entering the season, who was batting .225 entering today, picks up his 3rd hit of the day to tie the game. Despite the hit by Molina, the Cardinals could not finish the job as Alan Craig struck out to end the inning. And so we head to the 20th inning, tied at 1. Joe Mather was still on the mound here in his 2nd inning of work. The first batter he faces, Angel Pagan, reaches base on an infield single that really should have been called an error, but wasn't. I want to point out this single because Pagan, in this at-bat, was the 12th batter Cardinals position players had faced, and he was the first Met position player to get a hit off Lopez or Mather. Before Pagan, the only hit the Mets managed off Lopez or Mather was a single by relief pitcher Raul Valdez. That must be some kind of record. The most batters position players faced before an opposing position player managed a hit. After the hit by Pagan, Mike Jacobs singled to set up runners in the corners with no outs. The next batter, Jose Reyes, drove in the go-ahead run on a sacrifice fly. Pagan came in to score, and the Mets once again took the lead. Mather was able to get the next 2 batters to fly out and pop out to limit the damage to a single run, and so the Mets led 2-1 entering the bottom of the 20th. I find it amusing that the Mets were only able to score runs off position players, as they were inferior enough to score runs off actual pitchers. It's the new stalling strategy. Force your opposing team to use all their pitchers until they put their infielders or outfielders on the mound. For those keeping track, Felipe Lopez and Joe Mather combined to face 16 Mets. Those 16 batters combined to get 3 hits, 4 walks, 1 hit by pitch, and 3 sacrifices. Entering the bottom of the 20th, New York called on starting pitcher Mike Pelfrey to close out the game. Would Pelfrey breeze by the Cardinals in this inning? Not exactly. He managed to retire the first 2 batters of the inning. Reliever Felipe Lopez grounded out for the first out of the inning, and reliever Joe Mather flew out to right for the second out. For the second straight inning, New York was an out away from pulling off the win in a game they had no business winning. However, Brendan Ryan singled to left field, followed by a 4-pitch walk to Skip Schumacher. Add 2 more runners on base for the Cardinals, and once again, they get a runner to scoring position. At the plate now is Ryan Ludwick. Ludwick entering this at-bat was on base 4 times with 2 singles and 2 walks. Just one more hit and he could tie or win the game. Ludwick was also no slouch, as he was one of St. Louis's better hitters that year. Could he pull through just one more time in this long, grueling stalemate of a game? He would not, as Ludwick grounded out to second base to finally end the ballgame. 6 hours and 53 minutes after first pitch, and it finally ended. This game had a 3:14 p.m. local start time and ended at 10:07 p.m. At 20 innings, it's the longest win by the Mets in franchise history, and at 6 hours and 53 minutes, the 9th longest game by time in MLB history. For the Cardinals, it's the sloppiest loss in franchise history. In 13 consecutive innings from the 8th through the 20th, the Cardinals managed to get a runner on base in 11 of those. They got at least one runner to scoring position in 8 of those innings, and in total during that stretch had 23 base runners. Nearly 2 per inning, and they managed a single run. That's also just accounting from the 8th inning on. When looking at the game in total, St. Louis had a runner reach scoring position in 11 different innings, aka more than half of the game. I would like to repeat that. The Cardinals in this 20-inning game had a runner reach scoring position in 11 different innings. They managed just a single run. Their 27 times on base in a single game is the all-time record for most times on base while scoring 1 or fewer runs. In total, St. Louis hitters recorded 15 hits, 11 walks, reached on 2 errors, yet went an astounding 1 for 18 with runners in scoring position, stranding 22 men on base. With the new extra innings rules and the addition of the DH in the National League, we'll never see a game like this again. That could be a good or bad thing depending on who you ask. It will go down as the sloppiest loss not only in Cardinals franchise history, but all of MLB history.